Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you. Welcome to the Grihastha Vision Team Q&A Panel, or as they may have called it in the 70s, Bloop Fest 2020. We're so glad that you guys have come here tonight. We've got an amazing panel of speakers, experienced people. We'll get into introductions in a little bit, but just if you've heard about the event but aren't quite sure what the Grihastha Vision Team is, I'd just like to give you a brief explanation of that. The Grihastha Vision Team is a grassroots volunteer group of Krishna devotees who are mostly mental health or educational professionals. Their intention is to provide resources to support married couples, prospective couples, and anyone interested in spiritual married life, primarily, but not exclusively, in North American ISKCON communities. The mission of the Grihastha Vision Team is to support, strengthen, educate, and enliven the individuals, couples, and families who are or will be involved with the Grihastha ashram. Okay, my name is Yarnath Das. This is my lovely wife, Akanta Bhakti. Say hi.
Hi, Will.
Told you. And we are going to moderate this panel. So this is how it's going to work. First, I'm going to give we're both going to give questions to certain of the panel members. These questions have been predetermined, pre-written, okay? But at any time, if you have a question about something somebody said, or you just have a question in general, you are invited, if you're on Zoom, to put it right in the chat box and put those questions out. You can put those questions to us privately, or however you want to do that. If you're not on Zoom, you have a link there in the comment section of Facebook and YouTube. Click on that link and it provides you with a form that you can submit your questions through that form, and then we get them all the way over here. It's technical matter. So I'd like to ask everybody to mute yourselves if you are unmuted. Thank you.
Speaking of technical magic.
Yeah. If people unmute, then we get some weird echo things happening. That's the only reason why I want you to stay muted. And that's why all the questions will be filtered through Akanta Bhakti and myself. We will address the panel with as many questions as possible that we can get to. We don't know if we'll be able to get to all of them. If not, we apologize for that ahead of time. Okay, so after the first go round of questions that we will pose to the panel, then we will start posing your questions, and we do invite you to do that at any time. So before we, should we do the introductions now? Okay. Without further ado, we will let you know who is here that's going to answer your questions. I'll start off. Yeah, down there. Krsnanandini Devi Dasi and Tariq Prabhus toured the globe from 1965 to 1971 as body doubles for Sonny and Cher.
Yadanath, no.
It's a joke. No jokes.
Sorry about that, Prabhu.
Krsnanandini Devi Dasi, a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and her husband Tariq Prabhu, an Orthodox Muslim, are an extremely dynamic power couple, my words, not theirs, who facilitate workshops, write healthy relationship articles and books, design and implement marriage and family curricula, and teach out-of-the-box courses like 16-hour parenting for the 21st century and others. They provided marriage and family education to hundreds of couples and are committed to seeing healthy, happy children, couples, and families in Krishna consciousness. Regarding their successful interfaith marriage, they say, "We believe in one God and honor and respect our friendship every day."
I don't know how to spotlight that now.
Okay, good.
We're sharing technical duties here, so forgive us. Archana Siddhi Devi Dasi and Karnamrita Das are both disciples of Srila Prabhupada. They joined the Grihastha Vision Team at its inception. They both teach, write, and counsel devotees about making the mind the best friend in order to progress in spiritual life.
There we go. Partha Das and Uttama Devi Dasi were married in 1971 and initiated together by Srila Prabhupada in 1973. They have 3 children and 6 grandchildren. Seeing the high divorce rate in their communities, they decided to train as marital educators. Since 2004, they've been members of the Grihastha Vision team and have mentored numerous couples and facilitated seminars around the world. They are co-authors, along with other GVT members, of Heart and Soul Connection, a devotional guide to marriage, service, and love.
Did you want to highlight them?
Thank you.
Sorry, we would just like to highlight them as well.
Once we find them.
There, nope.
Hi, guys.
Okay,
who's
next is Vrajalila.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, you can't go
I
ahead.
can't.
Okay. Oops.
You just went past them.
Now again.
Okay, thank you. Vrajalila Devi Dasi and Ekavira Das are both disciples of His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami. They've been married for 28 years. Together they have 3 children. Ekavira is a trained hospice caregiver, a certified holistic health consultant, and is currently studying pastoral care counseling skills with Karuna Care Education. Vrajalila is a certified conflict specialist, a facilitative mediator, and a certified trainer in nonviolent communication. They were both pioneers in the creation of the International Devotee Care Initiative and enjoy serving on the Grihastha Vision team. Together, they serve devotees globally, offering workshops and seminars.
Great. Okay.
That's one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Check the other one some point. Okay. Jagannatha Pandit Das and Cintamani Devi Dasi are disciples of His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami as well. They have been married since 1991 and have 2 daughters. Jagannatha Pandit, a counselor, and Cintamani, a psychotherapist, have served devotees and their families through education, counseling, and workshops. They have been GVT members since its inception. Cintamani, and this is Jagannatha Pandit.
And then last but certainly not least are Aksh Prabhu and Gopika Dasi. They are, Yadnath has gone over my.
Oh, sorry. Can you find it?
Sorry, Prabhu.
There we go. I just want you to see who we're talking about if you don't know them.
Aksh Prabhu and Gopika Dasi are 2nd-generation devotees whose service involves Krishna conscious and spiritual education for the youth. They've attended several GVT retreats, I think all of them, and are the GVT's biggest fans.
Okay, so let's take them off the spotlight there.
Sure.
And
That I don't know.
okay. So now I would like to invite Mother Krsnanandini Prabhu to give us a brief introduction on purpose, hopes, and the goal of the panel.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ekanta and Yadanath. I hope I can hear my voice. This panel has been devised to share with the devotee community and to give hope and promise to those who want to have healthy spiritual marriages. Because of all the things today, having strong spiritual family life is so important. And the Grihastha Vision team has dedicated years of labor and love to promote various initiatives to do that. We have the book, Heart and Soul Connection. We have the couples retreats. We have the one-on-one sessions. We have Uttama and Partha still traveling around the world to make sure that devotees have what we need in terms of tools, tips, and hope. Srila Prabhupada wanted us to be happy, and he knew that if we utilize the skills that he has given us, with one another and in the scriptures, that we could be happy. It's very important. This is our devotional service. Our marriages and our families are our offerings to our Guru and to Prabhupada, and we should not take that lightly. So with this in mind, the Grihastha Vision Team, and we have other members who are not physically here, Mantrini, Tamohar, Uttama, Praharna, Sri Devi. These are other members who have dedicated their lives to make sure that devotees have the skills that we need. And it is possible to be happy in spiritual marriage life. It is possible to have a partner, a team partner, who works with you to serve God. So that's what the Grihastha Vision Team is all about. We use that word vision because we want to see ahead the success of this Krishna consciousness in our families, with our children, with our husband, with our wives, with our parents. So this is the gift that Prabhupada has given us, and we have to utilize that gift to understand, to use these tools, to learn how to forgive, to learn how to be humble, to learn how to share, to learn that the ultimate happiness is to make another devotee happy on behalf of the Lord. So this is our purpose in the Grihastha Vision Team, and this is the gift that we want to offer to you. And with hundreds of years of experience sitting before you, we hope you will utilize it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. That was really wonderful. So let's get right to some questions. We'd like to direct our first question to Vrajalila and Ekavira Prabhus. And that question is, look, we are living in a time of global challenges right now. How can we have a relationship without conflicts? Is that even possible? How close can we get?
Thank you so much, Prabhu. And we really are grateful to be here with all of the exalted devotees on the panel and all of the exalted devotees in the group, in the audience. You actually hit the nail on the head. Is it possible to have relationships without conflict? It's possible, but not probable. It's not probable because we're different individuals, different people with different perspectives and perceptions. So first of all, what is a conflict? I said, let's look up conflict. Let's see what Merriam-Webster has to say about conflict. So Merriam-Webster, Uvacha, conflict defined: a serious disagreement or argument, typically a protracted one. A serious disagreement, and typically a protracted one. So why serious and why protracted, or extending such a long time? Well, serious because of the different emotions that manifest when engaged in a particular conflict. And usually those emotions are as strong as anger or resentment and things of that nature. So how can we actually transform this, what is seen to be as a negative episode, to something that could be positive? And we can do that by changing our perspective or broadening our perspective. And so when we engage in a conflict, we can de-escalate this emotional state that we may be in by trying to remain calm. Now that's very difficult in the heat of a situation. However, we have this acronym that we want to introduce, and it gives 4 different areas in which can assist us in transforming a conflict from something that we can perceive as a negative interaction as something that is positive. So calm, this is the acronym, CALM, calmness, transforming a heavily emotional situation into a calming situation. First, calm. that stands for commitment to the relationship and the processes in which we develop a synergistic relationship. Many of our difficulties or conflicts that we have in today's world are because there is not a commitment to the relationship. And we can't come to a resolution or we can't come to a resolution or transformation because we haven't made this commitment. So that's the first point, the commitment to the relationship and also the process to develop a synergistic relationship. The second point, that's seeing a conflict as an asset or an opportunity for growth. Again, conflict has this negative connotation. However, if we can see a conflict as an opportunity to have clarity, to go deeper and to, go deeper into the relationship, we can de-escalate these emotions that manifest typically in these conflicts. So we see this as an asset or an opportunity for growth. The third point is L. How can the conflict be a learning experience? An experience in which it teaches us something about our spouses, our children, anyone that we are in a relationship with, even with our own minds. So this particular episode can help us, can teach us. So we see this particular episode as a teacher, because again, as we talked about, we're different individuals with different perspectives and different perceptions. So L, use the conflict as a learning experience. And M stands for Mahaprabhu and our mentors. We always understand that the Lord and our mentors, our spiritual masters, are always present, always with us and watching us and desiring to give blessings, not just desiring to give blessings, but to shower blessings upon us and to use us in being the servant of the servant and acting in that mood and serving our spouse. So calm, C-A-L-M, transforming conflicts into an experience in which we can learn and grow from that. Commitment to the relationship, seeing the conflict as an asset or an opportunity, seeing it as a learning experience, and understanding that Mahaprabhu and our mentors are always present with us.
And yeah, Ekavira Prabhu, so commitment to the relationship. That's a big one because many people can say, well, yeah, that's great, being committed to the relationship. However, I have my opinions and I have my expectations and I have the way that I value other things and other people. And so many things can be not understood by you. So we, everyone is different and every situation is unique. So in no way are we saying that these conflict information that we're sharing or our tools that we may share will work for everyone. However, in general, if we can understand some of these, like these things that Ekavira Prabhu is sharing, C, so calm, right, C. So we're committed, however, we understand that there will be differences. We have this uncompromising, unified understanding in our marriage. It's uncompromised in that we understand that we need to, and we always do, embrace the process of internal development. We understand that very clearly. And so we know, even when whatever we may be going through, that we do always need to focus on the process, which we are committed to. Totally in our marriage. One of our commitments is for harmony. And another one is to please our spiritual master. That is important to us. So no matter what's going on in our life, we always go back to those two basic principles. He mentioned asset. So conflict is an asset because it's an opportunity. Ekavira Prabhu shared that. So we celebrate our diversity. We understand that we're individuals and we're different. We have core different beliefs on how to approach life because we come from different backgrounds, different ways of how we understand how people are supposed to unfold in life. And so 2 other principles that we incorporate in our lives is how we hear the message from each other, how I hear the message from him or how he hears the message from me. So first way that we might hear, right? We hear the message. When Ekavira Prabhu says something to me that, triggers something in me, one of the first things I might do is blame him, right? I'm blaming him. Or the second thing I might do is blame myself. So then I'm not really embracing the diversity of the fact that we do have different, perceptions and different ways that we might understand the same issue. The third principle he gave is learning experience. So understanding our personal preferences. We are different individuals and we value different things, different ways of how we approach life. We come from different worldviews. So what is the learning that we want to apply? So understanding my personal preference, which means I'm going to take self-responsibility. I want to understand, I want to connect with myself. So the first thing I do is I ask myself, what am I feeling? What's going on with me, Vrajalila? He said this or he's doing this and it's triggering something. What is it? What's that I am feeling? The other question I ask myself is, what is it that I need? So first is I take responsibility for myself because I don't want to blame him and I don't want to blame myself. So we want to understand the underlying needs and the underlying feelings as our learning experience. And fourthly, Ekavira talked about Mahaprabhu and mentors. So absolutely, there is no way that we can compromise our sadhana program. There is just no way, because everything that we share from a secular perspective about dealing with conflicts, the way that we can actually face and deal with our conflicts more easily than anything secular that we can share with you is really to have together a sadhana experience together. We chant together. We need to, worship together. We need to do these things together. And yes, it's not always easy. However, we can apply, these principles and we can see that they do work. They do work. Check our feelings, find out our needs, take responsibility for ourselves. That's the beginning of harmonizing with conflicts that are inevitable. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you. This next question comes to Cintamani and Jagannatha Pandit Prabhus. And the question we're asking is, how does a couple navigate the inevitable challenges and losses in life and maintain their connection and their faith?
Jai, thank you. So for sure, living in the material world, there will be challenges, there will be difficulties, and then also those who are married will also experience these same things. And first I'll say, in terms of Jagannath and my marriage, in terms of how we have tried to negotiate difficulties of life and stay committed and connected, is through mercy. So for sure, the mercy from our spiritual master, His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, the mercy from Srila Prabhupada, the mercy from the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, the mercy that comes from our families, our extended families, our parents, so mercy is the #1 factor that I think it's important for us always to remember. That's how we can do anything. Secondly, I would say, when I think back about how Jagannatha and I have been able to navigate some of the challenges, it comes back to how we started our relationship and how couples initiate their relationship and their courtship lays a very serious foundation for how they'll be able to negotiate things that they face as the marriage unfolds. So Jagannath and I, our marriage started long distance, actually. He was living in California and I was living in Washington, D.C. So our marriage unfolded through phone calls. So these days, long distance relationships are pretty normal and people have a lot of technology to help support that. They have Facebook, they have Skype, they have Zoom. Back in 1990, all we had was the telephone. So Jagannatha and our relationship was very dependent on phone calls. Every few months we had about a week visit. So from the time we start associating to the time we got married, we'd probably been in each other's company maybe 6 weeks, and the rest of it was by phone. And before Jagannatha and I met each other, we were both individually committed, as Mother Vrajalila just mentioned, to our own personal growth and development and deepening our connection with God and growing as people. So when we came together in a relationship, we were very clear that we wanted a spouse who would help support those same goals. So the more clear one is about their own personal commitment, their own vision, and what they're out to create in their life and what they want in their relationship with God, then as they're seeking a mate, their vision is very refined in terms of what they're looking for. So it was a blessing, actually, that Jagannatha and I were connecting by phone, because we had a lot of opportunity, which we made use of, to really learn about each other, to ask questions, to explore what our interests were, what our views were on marriage, what our views were on, child rearing, what our vision was for our unfoldment as spiritualists, and also what contribution we wanted to make to the world. So we also had different practices for self-growth. So we would journal every day, and we would share our, journal entries. We had our first major disagreement maybe 4 months into the marriage. And so Jagannatha introduced this process called the 5 feelings exercise. So it was guilt, anger, fear, shame, and sadness. So as we faced our first conflict, we would journal, and we would share our journal entries. And it really helped us commit to a deeper level of authenticity and vulnerability with each other. And that is because we were committed to that work personally. So we took that risk with each other and sharing. And lastly, before I turn it over to Jagannatha, we also had a daily practice. He and I wrote an affirmation and a prayer. And it focused on 2 things that I can recall. It's in one of our boxes in the basement. I don't remember most of it, but one aspect of it was seeing that Krishna is at the center of our life and the center of our relationship. And the second aspect I can remember is seeing that we're caretakers for each other, that we aren't each other's property, and that we're taking care of each other in service to God. And so there was a 3-hour time difference. So every morning at 7 a.m. when he was in California, and myself at 10 a.m., wherever we were, we didn't do this together always, we would say this prayer every day at the same time. And that created, actually, as my spiritual master talks about, like a spiritual force field that created a sense of spiritual fortitude and commitment for these particular vows. And we actually incorporated this prayer in our marriage vows. And those also laid a very serious foundation for a strong spiritual friendship. So that's what's kind of helped us negotiate. We've had a lot of calamities in our marriage, and they've all turned out beautifully because of Krishna's mercy. And so we're grateful that foundation, by the mercy of our spiritual master and Srila Prabhupada and all the Vaishnava devotees, have helped us to come through them. So Jagannatha Pandit will share his perspective.
Hare Krishna. So one of the things that affects relationships is what we bring into the marriage or to the partnership. And I was very fortunate to have 2 wonderful parents, devoted Christians, 2 generations of pastors in the family, and they've been married 55 years. They're still together, and very functional middle-class family. So I had blessings from the start, and also, as Cintamani said, I had the blessings of my dear Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Cintamani. And one of the things he talks about how life is a school of love. And despite the great start I had coming into this world by my parents, I give honor to them. Still, I'm here in this material world, and it's a school of love. It's a sign that I haven't graduated from this material realm. And so So being in the school of love is, the purpose is to graduate is we have to truly be completely unconditionally loving. So, or unmotivated, as Srila Prabhupada says, uninterrupted love. And so family life is like a classroom in that school of love. And so, and every participant in that family is a teacher, is a student, whether we're parents or children, so on. We all learn from each other. And there's constant lessons to be learned daily, right? And it's important to see the Grihastha ashram as the shelter that it is, because it's a place where there's countless intimate opportunities for purification. And that purification, those purification opportunities help us to become who we really are, being loving, and recognizing when we're not being loving, when we're not being compassionate, and learning from those mistakes, admitting those mistakes, talking about them, and rectifying. So that's some of the things we try to do in our relationship. We realize that we're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes. You know, even with the best of intentions, we're not going to get it right all the time. But if we can catch that, you know, catch our false egos, catch being not being selfless, then we can understand that we're in this together and that we're doing the best that we can moment to moment. And there's more and more opportunities to improve. And we can see that in each other. We can support each other with that. So there were times in our relationship, relating back to the question about challenges, where the calamities Cintamani is talking about, that Cintamani has had a lot of health challenges in her life. I've had virtually none. But it put me in a situation where I had to try to care for her and support her in ways that sometimes I didn't know what to do, because she would be in so much emotional or physical pain, and there was nothing I could do about it, you know, and it's just completely helpless, like what to do. And in those times, we would just have to just hold each other's hands, pray together, or I'd just be praying in my mind, and we'd be up, you know, all night, you know, just trying to get through whatever was going on. Those were the hardest times. I mean, for me, doing something physically, that's easy. But when I'm not able to take away the pain that my wife is going through or another person is going through, it's very difficult. So we would listen to Prabhupada bhajans and I would just try to be present, you know, as much as I can, to be a support. So those are some of the things, ways that we try to deal with challenges over the years in our 30 years of marriage.
Thank you, Prabhus. Thank you both. Thank you for that honesty and vulnerability. Really, really helpful. Aksh and Gopika Prabhus, you guys are next. I just want to say that a few questions are coming in. We will get to those questions after we do a first round of the predetermined questions. And also a gentle and respectful reminder to our wonderful panelists. If you can please try to keep it to 6 minutes, then that would leave us a lot more time for the questions that come in from the audience, if possible. So Aksh and Gopika, our junior panelists here, what are some of the misunderstandings or false expectations that you had about marriage before you got married? And what did you learn / realize?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for encouraging us to participate. And honestly, we're just super appreciative of just listening to everyone else here. So that's personally our goal. But since you've asked, we'll share something. Yeah, we just crossed 5 years in July. So it was a good time to look back and think, what did we expect going into this? And where are we now? So we'll share a few things each. I think one of the things that stuck out for me is, I remember before we got married and moved in together that there was a certain level of effort required in getting together, going on dates or spending time. And so there was a need to kind of engage in like the relationship to stay connected. And I just thought that, when we get together, we'll have to figure out the logistics of living together and all of that. But the love stuff is going to be figured out. I mean, the relationship, the connection, that's just, we're going to be with each other. We're going to pass by each other. It's going to be so easy to do it all. It's not necessarily the case. That there is a very conscious effort that I realized I had to make. So personally, this is one of the things that I always struggle with, and still today, this morning, also we're having a discussion and something that I'm still struggling with. So I wanted to share that. And then the other thing is a little different, maybe a little more subtle, but I was thinking that, having grown up here in the US, that, I also saw myself very much, you can say, open-minded, maybe more progressive in nature, just saw like men and women as equal. And so I just thought being an equal partner, which is, sometimes, not everyone has a different type of relationship, but I know often that is the case in the modern world, that there's a certain expectation everyone's equal partner. And so I thought, well, that'll be easy to do. It'll be easy to be an equal partner. But I also realized that that whole idea of even shared decision making is not necessarily so easy to navigate, just again, by default. I thought everything's just automatic, it'll work. I remember there's a premarital list where you say who's gonna do what, and there's a checkbox for both. And like, I checked both for like almost everything. But of course, the execution is where, there has to be a lot of thought and dialogue for. So I realized that wasn't as easy as I thought. And at the end of the day, there's also a need to have a oneness as a couple and your own individuality as a person. That oneness and difference. So I'm seeing that was something that I didn't realize before, and something that I've been learning since.
So for me personally, I had this expectation going into marriage that whoever I would marry would be this person that would never hurt me, or in my marriage, I would never experience the same hurts or betrayals that I might have experienced in other friendships or other relationships. I thought that whoever I was going to marry would never do that to me and would never hurt me in the same way. And I actually learned that it's quite the opposite, not in a bad way, but being marriage almost put a spotlight for me on the ways that I got hurt in relationships. And it wasn't my spouse's problem, but it was my triggers and wounds from the past. And so I think realizing that and owning that, and then learning that marriage can also be, while it does spotlight and intensify maybe past hurts and baggage, it can also be like a beautiful opportunity to heal from past hurts and baggage if you work through it together. So I think that was one misunderstanding and learning. A second thing was regarding spiritual life. Like growing up in Krishna consciousness, I always had this hope. Like I had a criteria of what I wanted in the person I married. And one of the items was like a spiritual partner, that we would be able to share our spiritual life together and do everything together and chant our rounds together and, you know, travel hand in hand together. And I don't think it was a bad criteria to have on my list, but I think I also falsely expected that my spouse would be my spiritual coach, that he would almost, in one sense, take responsibility for my spiritual life. So if I wanted to get up early in the morning to chant my rounds, then, you know, he should be the one like nudging me and waking me up in the morning. Hey, get up, let's go, let's chant our rounds. And so I think in the first years of marriage, I was feeling upset and blaming him until I realized, wait a second, just because I'm married doesn't mean that I release responsibility for my own spiritual life and my own spiritual progress. And that he can be my cheerleader in my spiritual goals and aspirations, but I have to take responsibility. I think Srila Prabhupada writes in the Srimad Bhagavatam that we all have to fly our own plane at the end of the day, and we can take the support of the people that we love while we're here, but at the end of the day, we have to learn to fly our own plane. So I think just realizing that I have to still maintain ownership of my spiritual life and my sadhana, it's on me, was something that I learned. And the last was not an expectation before marriage, but I kind of felt it maybe the first year of marriage when, you know, the difficulties emerged. I started kind of feeling that our relationship had these hardships or, you know, conflicts or difficulties, and nobody else's did. And I remember when I first met Mother Uttama on the first retreat we went to, we were engaged at the time. And the first thing she said was, oh, you're engaged. Right now you feel like you're on the same page about everything, but after you're married, you'll feel like you're on the same page about nothing. And I swear at the time, I don't think I believed you, Mata. Like I was like, no, it's never gonna happen to us. We're so interconnected. But lo and behold, you know, going into the year 1, year 2 of marriage, those differences do really emerge. And I started doubting my decision. I kind of started feeling like, did I choose the right person? Did I, you know, should I have gotten married? Like, was this the right thing? It's so hard. And I don't think anybody else has it this hard. Everybody else's relationship seems totally perfect. Like, so those thoughts kept on coming to my mind. And then I think something that we've learned once we were able to kind of admit our challenges and accept help, that you know, our relationship is going to have certain challenges that other people's relationships might not. And where we thrive as a couple, maybe other people will have challenges, and the challenges that we have are perfectly orchestrated by Krishna to allow us to grow. And that it wasn't a mistake, because Krishna sent me my spouse so I can grow. And that's why I have to face the particular challenges, not that there's something wrong with my marriage. So those were the 3 things that I've learned in the 5 years.
Bruce, thank you. We are loving these courageous answers from you all. It's wonderful. It's a lot of wisdom for our junior members.
This next question is addressed to Archana Siddhi and Karnamrita Prabhus. And this question is, how has having a life-threatening illness changed your life as a couple? And what advice would you give to a young, healthy couple starting off together?
Are you guys unmuted?
You need to unmute. There he is.
There you go.
Right. Yes, you wanted me to go first, change a little dynamic in our relationship. So for me, I've been on a healing journey for the last 5 years from cancer. And it's been, you know, life-changing in a lot of ways. And I think I can say they may seem contradictory, but there's 2 sides to that. One is when you're facing death, then you know that it could come any day. I have so much more love, appreciation, and gratitude for my wife and all that we've been through. We got married in the big marriage with Jagannatha Pandit and some other couples 30 years ago. And yeah, it's very sweet. It's very deepening. You know, some people would think that it's only about, well, now you have to just renounce everything, but it's a deepening of appreciation. That's one of the principles of the 12 principles in the Grihastha Vision Team is mutual respect and appreciation. So it's probably, I think, one of the key tenets of a good marriage is that you believe in the other person, you validate them, you encourage them. And sure, there's differences, but you don't take the differences seriously. You focus on the commonality, on the connection, on the heart connection. And that's really, deepened, and it still deepens all the time in all my relationships. I appreciate them so much. I wish I could call and talk to everyone that I know and offer them love and appreciation and support, but it's a little difficult to do that. So that's one side, and that's a wonderful side. The other side, as Gopika mentioned, that I realized that, as Prabhupada said, we have to fly our own plane. So I get a lot of support from Archana, and we talk every day. I'm in Tucson now. I was in Vrindavan for 1.5 years, apart from her. Now I'm apart from her, but we talk. We're not apart. We're separately and we're separately and connected at the same. Achincha beta beta. It's hard, but it's good. So, I've been getting a lot from Bhaktitirtha Maharaj's book, Die Before Die. That was one of the inspirations for my lecture that I started giving at the beginning of my journey. And I'm giving it again in a more expanded series here in Tucson. It's on my Facebook page too. When Bad is Good, Finding the Gems in Misfortune. So that principle really helps us. But to understand that I have to deepen my spirituality and dependence on Krishna. And that's the greatest asset I have. And the greatest thing that I can give my wife, my family, and the devotees is my sense of urgency about my spiritual life, who I am as a person. That's also my offering. So I stress our character very much. So probably we did a workshop, well, it wasn't really a workshop, but we did a presentation, Arch and I, about being a patient and being a caregiver. So being a caregiver, as Panditji has said, can be very hard. You can feel very helpless. I'm in a lot of pain and and Archana, I'm a designated patient, but a lot of times she's in a lot of pain too. She's been the ill one in our relationship. So we've really had to, change roles like that. So we have to expect that there's going to be illness. We're going to get old. We're going to all face death in different ways. And that's just part of the equation. And you have to be interdependent. Hopefully we love our spouse. We appreciate them. We're grateful, but we realize that I sink or swim on the basis of my spirituality. Of course, prayers are appreciated. And I feel like the prayers of the devotees they really help me. At the same time, I have to be responsible for my faith, my realizations. So, Archana.
Thank you, dear, for being my partner. And I don't want to start crying. I'm very grateful for you being in my life. And if anything, being on this 5-year journey with the cancer has just helped me love and appreciate my husband so much more. It's kind of like if you you know, you have your wallet, you don't think about it so much, but if suddenly your wallet gets lost, you think about it all the time. So over the last 5 years, there's just been the constant, you know, idea that I may lose him very shortly. And yeah, it's like we've had a reverse of roles. When devotees were asking me why I didn't go with my husband to spend time with him in Vrindavan when he was doing a very intensive healing modality there. And I said, well, I would just have been a liability rather than an asset. The last time we traveled together was an international flight to South Africa. And the first night we got there, I had been dehydrated from trying to follow Peter Burwash's wonderful advice about not getting jet lag. So you fast, drink a lot of water, and you walk up and down the aisles on the plane. And so I did the fasting part, but I had a very large woman sitting next to me on the plane, and I was in the middle. So the idea of being able to get out of the seat to go to the bathroom to drink enough, so I didn't drink anything, and I didn't walk up and down the aisles. So when I got to South Africa, the whole world was spinning, and we got to our host's house, and it was a Sunday night and everything was closed, and they called a doctor, and the doctor said, well, just, you know, if she's really in an acute state tomorrow morning, bring her in. So that whole night, I just laid next to the bathroom, and my husband laid there with me, just holding me the whole night. And I kept saying, go to bed, you're exhausted. And so those are the moments that, and I know that Cintamani and Jagannath kind of shared something very similar. Those moments kind of define your relationship in so many ways. And it's to be expected. And I think every couple, just some advice is to, you know, for couples to understand right in the beginning of a relationship, these things are going to happen to us. You know, one of us is going to leave the world first. We're both going to leave the world at some time, and one's going to go first. And having that knowledge and preparing for it, Prabhupada said that it's not a morbid thing, but always keep death in front of you. Otherwise, you'll misuse this human form of life. We'll flounder the time that we have left, and we won't use it for everything that it's meant to be. And it's so easy in this world nowadays to do that. There's so many distractions and devices, and it's just unlimited how we can become distracted from our real purpose. So I just encourage every couple to make your life an ashram together and become serious, because otherwise, when these tests come, I mean, it's been hard, and I think, you know, we have pretty strong practices, but it's, you know, it's still been a rough road. So I just really encourage everyone to take it very seriously and make your marriage really help you be helpmates for each other on this journey of spiritual life.
Thank you very much. You know, these panelists are so fearlessly real. We so much appreciate it. We're getting so much out of this. We love you, Karnam. We love you. Uttama and Partha Prabhu. Uttama, with your permission, I would like to direct this question to Partha Prabhu specifically.
Sure.
Partha, how can a man feel safe with their partner's need for emotional connection? Now, a lot of guys have a hard time with this. I mean, like me, I have a perfect balance of masculine and feminine, you know, mostly masculine, but you know what I mean. But some guys would rather merge into the Brahma Jyoti than to deal with their emotional lives and connect emotionally. How to do that?
That's generally an issue in all marriages, and compared to some of the previous challenges we've just been discussing, it's like the molehill compared to the mountain. But if you can navigate this molehill, it's going to assist you greatly when those mountains come before you in your marriage. And it is a great challenge for men because the age we are living in now we have this phenomenon called toxic masculinity. And actually the World Health Organization has declared toxic masculinity and the inability of men to access their emotions to actually be an international health crisis.
Wow.
Men have much higher suicide rates, higher rates of heart disease, higher rates of cancer. So it's actually a very, very serious problem. And so culturally, we don't have it within us. Men are generally taught not to have emotions, to suck it up, to keep on going, to bury their emotions. And so when men enter into marriage and they're requested to open up emotionally, for a lot of men, that feels to them like they're being asked to give up their masculine nature and become feminine. And I'll admit, I actually had that feeling myself. And it was a little frightening for me to realize that I'm being asked to open up emotionally and to become emotionally vulnerable. And I felt like if I did that, I was going to lose some part of my masculinity. And so it is really a big fear for men. And it's something that can actually destroy marriages because couples can become so separated emotionally because the women have a very strong need for emotional connection, whereas men, that's not such a predominant need. And it can actually be a precursor to divorce if that isn't understood in relationships. So in order for men to become free from that fear, what they need to understand is that the goal in marriage, it's not just to open up emotionally, but the goal is actually to connect, to have meaningful heart-to-heart connections, to engage in service to Krishna together, to understand each Krishna together, to love each Krishna and to love each other. And a very important part of that relationship involves developing emotions. And in the higher sense, we're all Prakriti, we're all feminine. And in the highest sense, we see how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he exhibited these amazing ecstatic emotions for Krishna. Srila Prabhupada exhibited such amazing emotions and love for Krishna and emotional compassion for devotees. And so that's actually what we aspire for. And I'd just like to say also, it's something extremely important for the progress in your spiritual life and your marriage. Just like Vrajalila was talking about, and Ekavira about turning conflicts into an asset. And Vrajalila was saying how that can be done by really compassionately understanding needs and feelings. And so especially for men, if we cannot understand our feelings, it's also going to be difficult to understand our needs. And so when there are conflicts, we can never really get to the crux of the issue because we haven't really identified our core needs and our core feelings. So one great asset of marriage is that we can actually learn, with the help of our wives, we as men can learn how to access our feelings and actually progress in our spiritual life.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing that, Prabhu. The last of the first round of questions goes to Krsnanandini and Tariq Prabhus. And this is something they're well versed in. I wasn't quite sure about that because Uttama Prabhu didn't speak at all.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's go with it. All right, we're going to change up because it was listed as a second question, so we were going to do it second round, but let's go with that. Uttama Prabhu, how did you get him to open up emotionally?
Well, it wasn't that easy. I mean, he looks like a really, emotive person, and now But I did have to assist a little bit. I remembered hearing one time from Archana Siddhi to utilize curiosity with your husband and just ask why. So we were just starting to get into premarital education and mentoring and like that. And so I thought, well, we got to work on our relationship a little bit here. Otherwise, what use are we going to be to anybody else? So we would kind of sit at night and, I started asking him some quite deep questions. And, he would just give a little superficial answer. And I would say, oh, why? And he would kind of, answer further. And then I would, be curious and, oh, how did that affect you? And why was that? And, all of a sudden, like an hour went by and he was doing all the talking. It's not like with reflective listening, after a while, I take the chair. It was me listening and him talking. So that was probably like 6, 7, 8 nights of that, him doing all the talking. And it was, he just started to, express all kinds of things to me that he never really had before. And then I noticed he started switching it around and asking me questions. So it started to become like really mutually beneficial. So I see that it's just a matter of being curious and being non-judgmental, just kind of accepting what they say and fanning the spark a little bit and just listening. And then lo and behold, you get an emotionally intelligent husband.
Fathom such a thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So the question is not like, why isn't Yadinath rubbing my feet every night, right? That's not what you mean by curiosity, right?
No.
Okay, just checking, just checking. Thank you for that.
But, you start wherever, just get it deeper.
Okay.
So Krsnanandini and Tariq Prabhu.
So would you please define for us the qualities of a premium parent?
And if you'd rather not.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Did you hear a word we said?
No.
Oh, well, anyway, I'm going to start off. And then I'm forgetting what I was going to say now. So there's the question is, what is a premium parent, right? And also I'm listening to everyone who has shared before. And so the first thing I would say, some of what goes into being a premium parent is learning how to be a premium spouse. And all the different ways that we have heard examples of how we can learn from each other, how we can use tools that work for the other, that we become better at being a spouse because of the input of the other spouse. And in our case, that's how I became better as a spouse. Not the best, but better is from the input that Krsnanandini, the way that she would support my. One day she was talking to me. She said, "Tariq, you didn't tell me all of this, all these, So I had a whole lot of. You can still hear me? You still hear me? Okay. Okay. Yes. Great. So we were, and myself in particular, I was much older than Krsnanandini, and I have a certain youthfulness about me. But in that being older, then I've acquired a history of successes and failures, unfinished business, things like that. So as we were moving ahead in our marriage, some of the things would come up. And the value that Krsnanandini has been to me is by us being friends before we got married. It was a great, great asset and helped be the foundation to help me have more of the assets of a premium parent. You all look so curious, like you're trying to read my lips or something, that you can't quite hear me, but you can hear me okay, right?
We hear you great.
Okay. I think the noble ideas that we get from being spiritual people, they help lay a foundation of us being premium parents, because it creates a desire in us to have more of a improvement that would please Krishna, please God, because of the way we're improving. So having a spiritual journey is especially a way to become not only a premium parent, but a premium spouse, a premium citizen in the community. That we are, and that's one thing we want to look at too when we say being a premium parent. It is that we want to be a citizen in the community, to be an asset to the community by providing this family and this relationship as a model for other people in the community that we don't see that much. When we go to a community, well, the first thing I think of, Krsnanandini and I, we teach a lot of classes in the general public. And then one day, one of the students was, I think we had about at least 10 couples in that class. So that's about 20 people. But in one day, one of the wives blurted out, wait a minute. You two are not of the same religion? It became a shock to her that we weren't of the same religion because of how well, she said, you all work so well together. You can be on the other side of the room, hardly saying anything, and she can read your mind, and the vice versa. And when people see you blend to where you're as one, that's part of the quality of being a premium parent and a premium a citizen in the community, an asset in the community, that you're trying to inspire others. That unity that you can develop as a husband and a wife with your friends, your family, and your children, that helps inspire them when they see that unity. So that's the foundation of that. So I'm going to stop at that being together, reading each other's vibrations and trying to do good for the ones you're trying to serve, whether it's your children, or whether it's the people in the community. They need to see that unity, and that's part of the ability of a premium parent.
Well, you know, thank you, my voice here, but anyway, we coined this term, the premium parent, because we wanted to highlight what actually would be the higher concept of offering a child to God. You know, the scriptures say no one should become a mother or father unless they can raise their children to have a higher consciousness. So 8 things we identified that a premium parent does. And one is that they're very intentional about raising good, healthy character children. 2 is that they model the behavior that they want of their children. 3 is they're truthful, they're clean, they're compassionate. So they show these qualities to the children. 4 is they realize that all the children in their community are their children. The children in the community are all of our children, so we have a responsibility. 5 is so they show genuine affection for their children. 6 is they are aware of the connection that they have between God and the life in all. And so they see their children as not belonging to them. A premium parent sees the children as belonging to Krishna, and I'm just a servant taking care of Krishna's children. And finally, a premium parent raises their children holistically, body, mind, spirit, and soul. So that's our criteria for a premium parent.
You guys are so incredible. I mean, everybody, thank you so much. That was wonderful. I'm a little depressed because so many really excellent questions are coming in, and I know for a fact we're not going to get to all of them, and for that we apologize.
Okay.
True. It's true. So I apologize for everybody who's asking questions that we're not going to get to. Let me just get right into one of the first ones from our audience. It's a little combo platter we're going to give, and oh yeah, you know, I unintentionally dissed Uttama, so I'm going to direct this toward her. Uttama Prabhu, is it necessary to have a romantic aspect to the relationship, or is it okay if a relationship exists on the basis of an intimate and spiritual friendship? Also, is it necessary? Oh, I'm sorry. What is the appropriate way to talk about physical intimacy during the courtship phase of the relationship? Is that clear?
So how many hours did you want to give me?
2 minutes.
Just joking.
20 words or less.
So the first question was, you know, is it okay to have, or is it necessary to have this, you know, romantic attraction? Because some people say, oh, it's just good if you have a spiritual friendship. And I think you actually need both. They may come in any order though. And sometimes you just start out with a spiritual friendship. And later on, as you develop, you know, your relationship further, you probably will just, you know, have an attraction for the other person because of what you're giving to each other. So that's natural. Nowadays in the material world, they think, okay, first you got to have this romantic attachment. Otherwise, you know, it's not even a relationship. Sometimes it does start out like that. And sometimes it's a disaster. You're not well matched at all. So it certainly isn't enough. It can be a slight asset in that it can help you navigate through the more challenging times if you, you know, kind of like each other deeply. So it's an asset. But really, the most important thing that everyone's looking for in a relationship is friendship. And so you do have to be able to have that deep, meaningful friendship. And for most spiritualists, that naturally includes, you know, the spiritual dimension. So you want that, you know, spiritual connection with your friendships. What was the third part? Now I forgot the third part.
Should couples discuss the romantic aspect of relationship?
Yes.
When they're getting to know each other?
You know, we have this ideal in Srila Prabhupada's books, which we all need to strive for, and that is complete focus and love for Krishna. We are all in this material world, and in this material world, we tend to equate loving feelings with some sort of sexual feelings. So when people feel that sexual expression needs to be dovetailed in a way that helps them advance in Krishna consciousness, they may decide they want to enter into, you know, a partnership. So other people, they want a partnership strictly for spiritual advancement. And so if you're each coming into it with a little bit different expectations of the relationship, that can be confusing. I distinctly remember hearing about Archana Siddhi and Karnamrita doing premarital classes, even before we started getting into marital education, even before we started getting involved. And somebody described the skit. They had this skit, came on the stage with the husband and the chador tied to the white dhoti. They just got married. And the man was saying, oh, so I thought we would, for our honeymoon, we could go to a hotel down the street. And she's going, we're not going on Harinam, and living in separate ashrams. And they were just like, completely at odds with each other. So it would seem like it could be quite advantageous to have some discussions on your expectations, on how you want to progress in your spiritual life. I think it would be useful.
One temple president told us once he was greatly relieved to hear there was an initiative to start premarital education, because in his experience, he saw young couples, young brahmacharini and brahmachari get married, completely mismatched expectations, and he said the marriages would last 2 weeks. And if they would have discussed that before, a lot of grief could have been saved.
That's great. Go ahead.
Right. No, so part of the question was an appropriate way, like what's an appropriate way to talk about physical intimacy during courtship? So are there any guidelines you'd like to recommend?
Questions?
Well, it might be useful if you're on different computers, doing it on Zoom.
Another
that could help. I'm serious and I'm joking. It might be something you would want to discuss with a mentor, just to make it more comfortable.
Okay.
And it's not something that you have to, it goes in stages. All of the premarital conversations, they go in stages. There's one aspect, then you get deeper, deeper, deeper like that. So, you start superficially, on the external levels and go from there.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All right. This next question we're going to address to Jagannatha Pandit Prabhu. And the question is it wrong to expect my partner to show support to me in a specific way? My partner feels that I should be self-sufficient for certain aspects and wouldn't want to show support despite asking. Should I expect support in this scenario or not look for support?
Make sure to unmute yourself if you haven't done so.
Can I ask you to repeat the question, please?
Sure. Is it wrong to expect my partner to show support in a specific way? My partner feels that I should be self-sufficient for certain aspects and wouldn't want to show support despite asking. I imagine they're asking. Should I expect support in the scenario or not look for support?
Well, there's a couple of things. One of the things that Karnamrita Prabhu said earlier is mutual respect and appreciation as part of the 12 foundational principles that the Grihastha Vision team established for healthy relationships, which is also mentioned in Heart and Soul book, Heart and Soul Connection book. And so if we're respecting the needs of our partners, because we love our partners, okay? We want to support them, we want to help them, just as much as we also want to be supported and helped. If it is something that's within the realm of our capability to support and love our partner by fulfilling a request, then why shouldn't that partner want to do that out of love for that person? And of course, there's so many different things people could request, so it depends on so many other dynamics. If somebody is disabled and they can't drive, but I'm asking my partner to drive me to the store, or to drive to Florida or something like that. That's, you know, something that's not possible for that person. But even if it's something that the person can do but is unwilling, it's an opportunity to go deeper in understanding about each other and what is actually going on in the dynamic there. It's an opportunity, okay? Because maybe there's some other valid reason why the person is withholding in that way. And what happens is that it's an opportunity to get closer, to understand each other better, and complement each other better. Because you can build on that, okay? Because you understand more about that person. There may be other things that people maybe request. Well, maybe I could do this, but I can't do that, okay? Well, you understand how difficult that is for me, but that's no problem for you. So why not, you know? And it's an opportunity to negotiate and learn more about each other and working together in love for each other.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Not entirely unrelated. Let's jump from him to her. Cintamani, Prabhu, how can one rebuild their trust in their partner after an intense moment of conflict? Trust is not always tangibly experienced. So how can we continue to grow our trust in each other? Please remember to unmute yourself if you haven't already.
So for sure, as was said earlier, conflict is inevitable. And often, as was said earlier, or the majority of time, our marriages are perfectly designed by Krishna to help us to grow in our path closer to him. And the purificatory process is expertly designed. So our spouse, who we're in a very intimate relationship on many levels, we live with that person, we see them every day, that person knows the most about them, will very often in their speaking or their behavior bring up things that are very sensitive areas, or that areas that may be trauma triggers, or areas that we may not want to look at, or areas that very much touch our false ego. And it can also be quite wounding and quite painful. And so I think one thing would be that it's important for couples to have certain ground rules. And as we were saying earlier, really be committed to work on self-growth, so that you're taking responsibility that in your speaking and your behavior with your partner, you're being mindful to monitor yourself. So if you have a problem with anger, or if you have a problem with speaking loosely, then you know personally, maybe when you feel yourself getting upset, or feeling yourself getting hot, or feeling signs that let you know you may go beyond healthy boundaries, that you utilize your sense of responsibility to maybe leave the room, or to go talk to someone else, or to go chant your rounds. So to have certain ground rules that come from personal responsibility, and then conversations with your spouse about what types of things are triggering, or what types of things are very wounding. So that's kind of a foundational thing. But even with that being the case, we all get triggered, we're all conditioned, and those things can happen. So I think a critical aspect is to keep the communication lines open, so that we can discuss with each other, again, that was said earlier, what our feelings were, what our needs were, after we get in touch with them ourselves, try to listen to our partner's feelings and needs. And oftentimes what we'll see is that underneath there was an intention or a need that that partner didn't quite know a more healthier strategy of how to get addressed. So I think communication is important, and for us to show self-compassion in terms of what our feelings and needs are, in our own behavior that's hurtful. So then we have better insight about what might be informing our partner's behavior. And that increases empathy, it increases understanding. And also, as was mentioned, to seek support from mentors and community as we kind of work through some things that are painful.
Nice. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. All right, for parenting, we are going to go to Krsnanandini and Tariq Prabhus. And here's the question. First of all, Hare Krishna, dear Prabhus, thank you for this inspiring panel. What advice would you give to a couple that are uncertain whether having children is a service for them? What is helpful to know in order to make a decision? Thank you in advance.
And make sure you're unmuted.
So that question is very profound. And, you know, I often think about Lord Chaitanya said that you would have a 10,000-year golden age. And in that time period, the consciousness of the living entities would be much higher. And he came to inaugurate that. But it's not magic. It's certainly that children will be born to make that happen. They have to be born. You have to invite higher consciousness beings. So the choice of whether to have children or not, first of all, we have to see that as a service to Krishna. These are not my children, they belong to Krishna. And the more I invite higher souls to come and take the birth, the more this golden age can take place. Now that means sacrifice, that means thoughtfulness, that means prayer, that means intention. And it's such a great service to have children for Krishna. But it's a hard service to have children for Krishna. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
The one thing I think about is, you know that if you work in the community, you're helping inspire the community with your enthusiasm for doing the work that needs to be done. When you have children, it's, you have an ongoing personal relationship with them. And if any of them takes up the work that you're doing, it's like you're helping prepare them to carry on. It's almost like a little bit of you is still here in their soul, in their actions. And, you know, I think about my father a lot, how he unintentionally created a likeness of him in me and the things that I learned from him that stood out for me in trying to be a spiritual person, trying to be a father, and trying to be a community person concerned about others' children. I would see him interact with other children and inspire them to think. And so just how do we ensure that we leave a part of us back here in the community of the steps that we have made, how we share in the community, but do we have children that we're sharing with that some of them want to carry on the mission of making this world a better world to where Krishna could be proud. Now you got it, you know.
It's all about intention. There's a story of how Serena and Venus, the tennis players, their parents intended to make tennis players, high class, excellent. They came as a thought. He said, wife, I want us to have a tennis star as a child. And that was the intention. So if our intention is to produce Krishna conscious children who are an offering to Krishna by their behavior, then we can call upon that higher consciousness to do so. So if we're able, I think that is a good and excellent devotional service.
Thank you both so much. For those of you who don't know, Tariq and Krsnanandini Prabhus have between them 54 children. And I'm only exaggerating a slight bit. Archana Siddhi, please unmute yourself because this is coming at you. This is a little on the heavy side. It's really worthwhile to hear though. I was raised in a domestic violence environment and have gone through emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. I have a beautiful life now, but the thoughts and memories constantly interfere with my trust in relationships, in my relationship with my husband and my emotions. How can I deal with this and still be a loving, caring, and balanced wife and mother? Should I break my relationship with my father from where these thoughts and emotions emerge? I'm a bit stuck and want to understand the Shastric perspective. Thank you so much for that question.
Yes, and really so many, unfortunately, in this day and age, there's just so many cases of devotees coming from, I mean, they say conservatively 1 out of 3 girls have been sexually abused by the time they're 18, and 1 out of 5 boys have been sexually abused. So that's very conservative. That's what's reported. So, and then you add physical violence, you add all those other things, and we can almost think that probably one out of 2 people are coming into marriage with some pretty intense trauma that they're dealing with. And we do bring it into our relationship because these memories are stored in the part of the brain, the amygdala, which is the unconscious brain. And no matter how much, we can, the logic part of the brain can understand that these are irrational feelings or not, that we still have a very reactive emotional component going on. So there are treatments, counseling, there's a lot of things that have, aside from your spiritual practice, of course, is first and foremost, but it's hard to do spiritual practice for a lot of people who have been through trauma, that they need to clear that out enough to be able to focus in on their spiritual practices. So, I've been a counselor now for 30 years, psychotherapist, working with devotees in different capacities and non-devotees as well. I worked in a community mental health center for 12 years. And there's been, a lot of advances in understanding techniques that can be helpful for trauma. So I encourage you to get some outside help from someone who's, particularly someone who specializes in trauma. And I wouldn't even say that it has to be a devotee, just because it's hard to, there's not enough devotee therapists. I'm very happy to see some of the young people, the second generation going in, studying in that field. My daughter-in-law is just, she's now doing, getting her hours. She just finished her degree last year. And so I'm just really thrilled to see a lot of the young devotees going into these fields. But I can say that there's a lot of good therapists out there that can be very helpful with dealing with these kinds of things. They don't necessarily have to be a devotee, because counselors, if they're really trained properly, they're non-judgmental and they're able to just meet the client where they're at, and they could offer a lot of help. So that would be my answer to that question.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, Ekavira and Vrajalila Prabhus, we'd like to direct this question to you. So how can we draw boundaries early on in our relationship between meeting the needs of our parents/in-laws and our relationship with our partner? I find myself trying to please everyone, and it can cause anxiety and stress when the needs of each of these parties could be conflicting. This could go to all of us.
So in general, in conflicts, usually they're either principle centered, or they're preference centered, or they're poisonous centered. These are different ways that issues come up in marriage. So a relationship with the in-laws would be considered a preference issue. And therefore the couple would need to decide beforehand what role the parents, the in-laws will play in the marriage. So for example, this is a story that happened with Ekavira Prabhu and myself. When okay? When we initially got married, Ekavira took me to meet his mom, and this was in Detroit, Michigan. And so when he introduced me to his mother poked me in my stomach, and with a finger. This was her meeting of me. She stuck me in with her finger in my stomach, and she says, "Oh, so you also married a Pillsbury Doughboy. So you married a Pillsbury Doughboy." And I was like stunned. I was like, I didn't know what to say because I wasn't so familiar with Pillsbury Doughboy because I'd been a devotee for a long time. However, I do remember that meant something kind of soft and kind of, whatever, something. I understood that. And so I kind of looked at Ekavira, and she was smiling when she was saying it. So her intention was not really to hurt me, and I understood that. And so then I asked Ekavira later, what was that about? And so then he said, well, when as a child, when he was younger with his mother, he used to call his mother Pillsbury Doughboy because apparently his mother was a little bit kind of chubby, I guess. So at that time, for me, that experience was going to formulate a boundary based on my preference. My preference was to have an in-law that would appreciate me, acknowledge me, and, just welcome me into the family. I didn't expect that. So that was not my preference. My value was that in-laws are to, be receptive. So my reactivity, which is a way that we deal with conflicts usually, is to create boundaries. And so I created a boundary with her. Which for me was like, okay, she's in our life. She's your mom. Wonderful. However, my connection with her will be limited to occasional phone calls. Is that okay? And so I had that boundary. But what happened in that, with me creating that boundary, his mother started calling me, and his mother started saying to me, my son doesn't always connect with me. Can you be the one to connect with me? My son, that's just not his nature to just be calling her all the time. So it worked out that somehow I was able to kind of overstep that boundary that I had created with myself. So now, in terms of understanding conflicts, it's really important to know what is your preference and why are you creating that boundary? What really happened? What was the trigger that would create a disconnection with the in-laws? Because generally, I lived in India for many years, and I see culturally it's very different in different places. In India, sometimes the in-laws can be a little intense because they really want the daughter-in-law to come up to a certain standard, right? That's their intention. And sometimes it can be, kind of difficult on the daughter-in-law because values are different when in-law is older and they have a different value system. So again, I guess the point I would like to make here is to be aware within yourself internally why you are creating the boundary. Is it because you have certain expectations of what in-laws are supposed to be like in terms of your cultural and your belief systems based on what you learned as a child? That may not fit. And so we need to be present for that. So conflict says, expect the unexpected. So we say, when you meet your in-laws, expect the unexpected, because you never know what you're going to get. So be connected with yourself internally.
Yes.
And Ekavira Prabhu?
But she answered that, so nicely. And one thing I have to say is be careful what you actually do in your lives, because it can come back in your marriage in a way that came back in mine. I did used to tease my mother, and of course she then teased my wife. But in situations like this, because it is a cultural part of a culture that our in-laws are an integral part of our lives. It's not that we just marry have a spouse. We also have a relationship with the in-laws. So these, at the same time, in Kali Yuga, there's so many different things that we have to deal with. The dynamics are so much different than our traditional families had to deal with in the past. So in these situations, this is again an opportunity to engage in a process of dialogue with our spouse, becoming closer with our spouse, becoming open and honest with our spouse, just like in this situation with Vrajalila. When my mother poked her in the stomach, I said, "Oh no, I can't believe she did that. No." But when Vrajalila, I know she was really hurt, and I apologized. But then that opened up more of an opportunity for Vrajalila and I to actually get closer, to have the dialogue. And I was trying to console her because of that particular action. And it was really my action. It's something that I precipitated. I did that years ago, and it just came back in this relationship. So when we engage in activities in our relationships, be careful, understand that our mentors are there watching, because in some way, these particular situations may come back to us. And they may come back in a way that is not so favorable. So that's all I wanted to add.
That's great. Thanks. We're so glad that we went to you guys with that question. Partha Prabhu, someone is expressing gratitude for sharing your reflections earlier and would like to know, what do you do when the opposite is true? That is, the husband is more sensitive and expects emotional support for aspects that should be a personal responsibility. I'm going to say that again. What do you do when the opposite is true? When the husband is more sensitive and expects emotional support for aspects that should be a personal responsibility, then the wife doesn't feel like she can depend on the husband for her own needs.
It's important there's a balance there, that they both have to be considerate of each other's needs. And if it's leaning towards one side, the relationship it's going to put some stress on the relationship. A healthy attitude is that you have a balance of concern for each other's emotional world and each other's needs. And it's exactly that, a healthy attitude of balance. Like in flying a plane, there's a term called attitude, which is the position of the wings, position of the wings of the plane. So the attitude, the pilot keeps the attitude balanced. There's pitch, yaw, and attitude. So you have to keep the attitude balanced. If the attitude goes off when you're flying, your plane's going to flip over and crash. So in marriage, if we don't have a balanced attitude of seeing that we're both meant to serve each other and love each other for the pleasure of Krishna, and we don't seek to meet each other's needs, that attitude is going to be lopsided and it's going to cause difficulties. So we both have to meet each other's reasonable needs. And it's important for couples to be able to be vulnerable and express that. But it's also very important for if one of the partners is always tending to dominate and want their needs met, that can become unbalanced and unrealistic and can be a little unhealthy in the marriage.
And I would say from the wife's point of view, try to be brave and find the right opportunity to express it nicely, that, you know, I'm really happy you're opening up to me, and I'm sorry you're feeling like a little, like you need some emotional support. Is there any way that I can help you to figure these things out for yourself? Like, how can I help you help yourself? And try to work on that.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we'd like to address this question to Karnamrita Prabhu. My husband and I know a lot of relationship skills, but in the heat of the moment, we don't use them. What more can we do?
I've heard that from a lot of people, that, you know, it's theoretically we know what to do, but then we get triggered. So I think it just comes from having the desire to practice them. And for instance, there's something that we teach, what's it called? Reflective listening. And sometimes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So reflective listening, it seems artificial at first, but it's a skill that can be practiced and learned. So if there's a particular area of concern, then you need to be able to, when you're calm, that's the thing. Sometimes we have to like wait to have a discussion when the emotions are toned down. If you're both angry, all bets are off that you're going to have any kind of meaningful discussion. You're triggered. You're not in your core self, in your best resourceful nature. So you may have to schedule a time when the emotions are down, and you can be a little more thoughtful, reflective, and be able to objectively look at the problem. And then hopefully you do have enough skills where you can practice different techniques for, say, dealing with a conflict. That's a big topic. It is also interesting that, I forget, Archana knows the name of the person. I think it's John Gottman. He says 90% of the conflicts with couples are not solved, but managed. So that may sound a little disappointing to couples, like, what? You know, but we have to live with differences and make our love and appreciation for our partner primary, our offering to Guru and Krishna primary, and to know that if we are determined to get through whatever the difficulty is, we'll be successful. But so much, you know, Partha said the attitude, that's a great analogy. It's also, another plane analogy is that on a jet plane, passenger plane, every minute or so, the computer has to make a correction. Otherwise, it's going to go off course. And we might have been driving for 1,000 miles and have no problem. But if we take our hands off the wheel, we're going to go in a ditch. So relationships take, like we hear that in the 6th chapter of the Gita, that the transcendentalist, the devotee, is constantly endeavoring for perfection. So in a relationship, we have to give time to the relationship. We have individual needs and we have the need of the relationship. And both need to be nurtured. I need my space, but the relationship has to be given proper time and energy. And I'm a person that likes to avoid conflict. So avoidance is not really a good idea because they don't go away. But we can accept our differences out of love, that we may not be able to resolve it, but we can appreciate the other person's perspective. We can ask meaningful questions. One of the things I find with devotees, I'm sure it's with people in general, is that if you say one thing that a person doesn't agree with, they tend to put you in a box and write you off. And they don't ask questions to understand. And people use words differently in communication. So they may say something that triggers us. We have a particular interpretation, but unless we ask questions with interest and calm, not accusing, we're not going to understand where the person's coming from and that they have a good intention. We have to think that our spouse has good intentions, the best of intentions, and that they're just out of their core values or out of being the best person they can. So part of a relationship is to help all of us be our best and most authentic, loving, kind self. That's who we really are. We're not this angry, resentful, angry, triggered person. That's not who we are. So we have to know that about ourselves too. We're not that person. We're a soul, we're lovable because we're part of Krishna. And that's what we want to bring out in our spouse. So if we're not able to use something, then we have to regroup and figure out how we can, or maybe talk to a counselor if it's, we get triggered too much. So that's what I would advise. And you have to believe, you have to be possibility thinkers. You can't be just dogmatic, triggered, it can't be solved. And that's going to fester. It's like a splinter. You put a Band-Aid on, it's not going to solve the problem. So, Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Great, Prabhu. Thank you. I'm going to try to squeeze in one last question. I hope people are okay if we go over a little bit, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes tops. This question, they ask for either Archana Siddhi Prabhu or Cintamani Prabhu. See how the question strikes you. For me, this question harkened back to Gopika and Aksh at the beginning when they answered that first question that we posed to them. So if you have a couple cents to throw this way too, please feel free. The question is, how do we deepen our acceptance of the other partner, even in a long-standing relationship that has gone well? What do you think?
Cintamani, you want to say something first? No. Yeah, acceptance. It's a constant process of accepting and appreciating another person. And can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So and I found that usually when we have problems with accepting another person's behavior, I mean, there's some behaviors that we shouldn't accept, obviously, and that's where healthy boundaries need to be. But a lot of what we don't accept is just we have our conditioning, and somebody, does things a little different than us. And, it's the little things that disturb us in a marriage. It's like, can really build up, but self-acceptance is really the first and most important piece of it, because until we can accept ourselves, then we can't accept other people. We're going to be projecting our own things we don't like about ourselves onto others. And there's really no question of really being able to have true acceptance that it goes heart deep. I mean, we can do it superficially. So I think that kind of work, that self-acceptance, it's hard, devotees, a lot of times they feel like it's indulgence, or it's, to do work around self-esteem and self-acceptance. And it's not at all, because we can make so much more spiritual progress when we're able to accept where we're at, and to be able to look at our own imperfections and see that this is how I've been, you know, I'm a mess, and Krishna, I need your help, and, you know, please give me the help to become a better person. And Krishna really responds to that. And if we do it with humility, approach the Lord with humility, then yeah, magic can happen in our lives. And so it really all starts with we have to do that work first. Cintamani, you want to add something?
Yes, that's so beautiful. I really love that you said I'm a mess. That's a nice affirmation, because we actually, if we go before Krishna, that humble state of mind, Krishna, I'm a mess. You're the only one who can help me. And many years ago, His Holiness,
Which one?
sorry, His Holiness Sri Dayananda Maharaj came to Gitanagari. And so he did this exercise. He asked everyone to sit in the room, to just close their eyes. And he said, think of a time in your Krishna consciousness when you were the most fired up, when you were the most enthused, when you were most happy, when you were serving in all glory. So we all sat in the room and we closed our eyes and we thought of that time where we just felt so inspired in our Krishna consciousness, and he had to sit there for a minute. And then he said, that's who you are. That's who you are. And that was really transforming for me at the time, because I typically, even now, define myself based on what I'm not doing, what I should be doing. My daughter and I call this term like living in the gap between where you think you should be versus where you're at. And so when Mars did that exercise, it was such a nice reminder that who we really are as spirit soul is that eternal aspect of ourselves where we just really want to serve Krishna, and we're really trying to serve Krishna, and we're really crying out to serve Krishna. So as Mother Archana Siddhi was saying, like that sense of self-esteem is praying to be really tuned into our identity as spirit soul and as servant of the servant of the servant. And if we can be in deep prayer, that we can increasingly have that sense of identity, and we can be in that prayer for our mate, that Krishna can assist our mate in deepening their love for God, and that our union will deepen that, then in a way, you know, this whole life and this whole marriage is actually practice for the spiritual world as we know. So I don't know if this is exactly answering the question, but as it comes to me is we can deepen our appreciation for our mate by deepening our sadha and our spiritual practice, which begins to purify our vision of ourselves and others, and to be in a deep crying out for Krishna's mercy and for Krishna's will to predominate, and to surrender ourselves to Krishna's will. And in that way, our true sense of self-esteem will grow, and we can support our mate and our children, and we can be how Srila Prabhupada would like us to be. That's my prayer.
Wonderful, wonderful. Aksh and Gopika, anything you want to add to that?
Well, first of all, I think we're still very much learning how to do that for one another. But I can just share that I think having real expectations, in the sense that when you get married to someone, sometimes we say like happily together forever, but forever is a long time, and that means change. Like you're not going to be married to the same person forever, like the way that they were when you first married. They're going to evolve and change. And I mean, for me too, I will also evolve and change. So having the real expectation that your spouse is going to change over time with experiences in life, I think is really important. So when you find yourself, I mean, I'll speak for myself, but when I find myself struggling with that acceptance, it helps to know that this is going to be a struggle that comes up forever, that we have to constantly revisit this conversation and try to understand one another and reconnect with one another. And I will just say that it's not always easy to cultivate the understanding, especially when we might be going through different things in life or changing how we feel about things. And so just to accept the help whenever you need from the devotees and the community to help cultivate that understanding, because I think accepting one another is not like a one-time thing. I accept you at marriage. I feel like it's constantly revisited. That's all I wanted to add. Do you have anything?
No, I mean, I was just going to say that maybe, I think maybe everyone has a different kind of challenge with this, depending on our preferred flavor of our false ego. So for me, I think, yeah, I mean, the issue with acceptance or accepting someone else is more coming from a place of, I think I'm better than them, and I think I know what's better, and they should be like this or they should be like that. And so I think trying to work through that, understand where it's coming from, and understand, it's been, you know, an interesting journey, but just reflecting on where, at the end of the day, if I think about what the purpose of this is, it's an opportunity for us to grow together. And that opportunity comes from not trying to change the other person, but rather to learn how to appreciate and grow and be grateful for the other person. And it's a constant practice, but I think that's what I've been trying to keep in mind. So thank you.
I think it's nice to end with the junior couple, because you represent the future, and we need a future of ISKCON couples such as yourselves. Strong families, strong communities, strong ISKCON, as the GVT says. So I would like to ask Mother Krsnanandini to get ready to recite a poem for everyone, a brief poem, and then we're going to open it up in what I like to call Tawako style, let our audience express their gratitude, Hari Bols, to the panelists. But before doing those things, I just want to express my own gratitude. We were blown away. It's just, the Grihastha Vision team is such an amazing resource. All of the people involved with it, we just love all of you. We respect all of you. We value all of you so much. You give of yourself so much. We were knocked out by how open and honest and vulnerable and brave and strong and courageous and loving you all were tonight with these questions. And not a lot of people are as familiar with the GVT as other sort of ISKCON groups. So check out the website, check out the Facebook group. They're putting it in the comment sections, the YouTube, I don't know if there's a YouTube channel, but anyway, whatever format you're on right now, Zoom, YouTube, Facebook, you'll see postings of how you can be in touch with the Grihastha Vision team, and we both encourage you to do that. Okay. All right. Krsnanandini Prabhu, would you mind gracing us with the Better Together poem?
Yadanath Prabhu.
Yes.
Yadanath Prabhu.
Yes.
May I just take 1 minute to thank our tech person, Ladini Devi Dasi, who is a Gurukuli that is doing all the tech in the background. And we just want to really appreciate her for making herself available to do this service for the Grihastha Vision team. Thank you, Ladini.
Thank you so much,
Yes,
Vrajalila.
thank you.
Thank you for including that. Thanks, Ladini. Okay. Krsnanandini Prabhu?
Yes, so this poem, Get Better Together, was written maybe about 20 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's a reflection of a desire that we had as part of a larger community group in Cleveland to come up with some kind of song or motto for couples that would represent
Have to do it, right?
getting better together. So this is from our heart to yours.
Okay, so if everybody can remain muted.
Oh,
So
we're in this together. Through good times and stormy weather, we're willing to do the work it takes. Be a team, pray, make less mistakes. We want to get better together. With faith in Krishna that our marriage will be great, we're learning to better communicate, to speak what we want with respect, to listen to get the most effect. We want to get better together. Our goal is to be each other's best friend, to get skills so our relationship won't have to end. Tools to manage our time, children, and money, to avoid the mess and go after the honey. We want to get better together. Trust, forgiveness, respect, yes. Lying, cheating, fighting, no. With consideration, cooperation, and devotion, we can flow. We want to get better together.
Every time I hear Tariq Prabhu do that poem, he never loses a shred of enthusiasm. It's so beautiful. Thank you both. So I want to thank our audience for being here today. I don't know if the panelists have seen, but the chat room has been really crowded with positive comments, gratitude, people saying that we should do this, you should do something like this every quarter or every year. People are really finding value. So we thank you. We thank our esteemed panelists. And now we'd like to unmute the audience so they can express their own haribols, etc., to the panel. So
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna. Mata Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Hari Hari Bol Mataji, Hari Hari Bol. So wonderful session. Hari Bol.
Krishna Mata, Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranams. Thank you, thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you so much.
So much wonderful sessions, wonderful session, wonderful every Mataji and Prabhuji. So wonderful.
Thank you. Have a good night. Appreciate it. Much love. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Grateful for your association and guidance. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Good to see all the wonderful devotees on this panel. Thank you for having this.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for such a wonderful program.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much to everyone. It was absolutely divinely beautiful.
Thank you. We cannot put our video on, so we cannot see. I mean, you cannot see us.
I don't know.
Thank you so much.
Technical difficulties.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna, Mother Krsnanandini, and Peter Tariq. I miss you. I love you.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. It's 11 p.m. here in the UK. I'm just smiling from ear to ear from all your associations. So thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
okay, everybody, thank you so much.
Love you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yadana. Thank you, Bhakti. It was great. You're hired.
Thank you. We'll expect a check any day now.
Thank you, Yadana Prabhu and Eka Bhakti.
Wonderful to see all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you
so much. Have a good night.
Have to end with a group hug.
We want to get better together.
Better together.
Haribo.
Haribo.